Today, I'm going to work on getting this longbow ready for hunting season. Traditional archery is probably one of the top things I get asked about when it comes to my YouTube comments or my Facebook Messenger or whatever. This bow is a Tolkien whip. It's called, it's a reflex, deflex longbow, which means that the limbs, as you can see, kind of come back a little bit. It gives it a little more load, gives it a little different feel, makes it a little more efficient. It's a really good bow. I'm a big fan of longbows. I've killed deer with recurves, but I just prefer how a longbow shoots. This bow, 50 pounds at my draw length, 64 inches overall. This bow here, I obtained this from Facebook. This thing, if you'd have bought this thing new, you'd probably been at that $1,000 to $1,200 maybe range. If you get on some of these Facebook classified places, like traditional bow hunter classified places like that, you can really pick up some really good used longbows for a lot cheaper. I think I paid like $500 for this thing. So you can save a significant amount of money and you get some custom bow for a cheaper price. Okay, now what I did first was the grip on this was like a beaver tail type grip, and it was worn out. The stitching had come out of it, and I went ahead and just put a rubber grip on it. These rubber grips, you can get them at Three Rivers Archery sells like a specific rubber grip. You can also just use bicycle inner tube and put the grip on it. So I went ahead and put that on it. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is you can see this rest right here. It has some wear on it. I'm going to go ahead and just take that rest off, and I'm going to replace it with some leather, adhesive backed leather, and get that taken care of. You want everything set up how you're going to want to shoot it before you start tuning it. If you're going to make any changes in the future, then you got to retune your bow to make sure everything's shooting right. So let's get that rest put on this thing. If you want something really nice for working on your trad bow, this is one of these, just a gun cleaning mount, and your trad bows just fit real nice into it, so it makes it real easy to work on your trad bow. I went ahead and peeled off the rest that's on there now, and I got some gunk and junk that's on my trad bow. You can use a little acetone. This is a little goof off. I'm just going to kind of get some of that junk off there. It doesn't take much. I'm even going to take just some, I don't know, whatever this is. This is some kind of a Scotch Guard pad that I have laying around, and just get the shelf nice and clean again. This Tolkien, you may wonder, like, why I picked the Tolkien. I really am a big fan of a two-piece bow or a one-piece bow. This particular bow is just a one-piece bow. I just like the looks of them, to be honest with you. I have a Stalker that's a three-piece takedown. It's really nice too, but I just kind of like the looks of this one-piece bow here. Got the goof off, cleaned off there. Now, again, most of this stuff, any of this stuff I'm talking about, you can get this from Three Rivers Archery. It's just backed leather. This one in particular is a little kit they sell. They're like $4 for this kit. It's not very much, and it's good high quality material. So this is what I would call the strike plate. It goes on the kind of the side of the bow like this. I want it to fit in there perfectly, and it's not really perfect here. So I'm just going to take scissors and trim it up so it kind of fits the contour of the rest here, or the shelf, I guess. Okay, and then you just kind of put it on there, make sure it's correct. So the strike plate's fitted. The shelf of a bow, of a traditional bow, if it's built well, will actually kind of be a V shape. And what I mean by that is the shelf right here kind of has a taper up and then back down, and that is by design. That is so you have minimal contact with your arrow to the shelf. As you can see here, this arrow is setting on this shelf, and it's actually floating right there, just barely touching the shelf itself. Less arrow to bow contact is why it's designed that way. So you don't need very much of your rest material. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it here, and then cut out a bit of the actual And you know what? I'm going to get got a pin here. Just going to put it up against my bow and then just mark where I want to cut the rest or the piece of leather. Okay, here we go. It's nice and sticky. Then we're going to put the strike plate on. There we go. Now we got a brand new rest on our longbow. That easy. This piece here, the actual bottom part of the rest, not that important to me. Just wanted enough to keep the thing quiet, the arrow quiet. But I really like my strike plate to be big, because whenever I'm flopping my arrow around, if it hits anywhere on this bow, it's going to be dead. Obviously, I hit up here, that's loud. So if you have a really small strike plate, there's no sense in it. Go ahead and get you a nice and big strike plate on your longbow, especially if you're hunting with it. One reason I really like my rubber grip versus like a leather grip or no grip at all is the fact that I can take these zip ties here and I just cut a small piece of zip tie, maybe an inch long, off, and then I actually will take this zip tie and just get it started into that grip right there, just enough to where whenever you're sitting in a tree stand, the wind will oftentimes blow your arrow off this rest. So this is not an enclosed drop-away rest or anything like that, or a whisker biscuit. So you're up in the tree and the wind blows, it'll actually knock your arrow off of the rest. So get you a little zip tie and just keep it right inside that grip, and then your arrow can't fall off. They make other devices too. And then before you shoot, you just kind of got to push it down into the grip itself a little bit, and it's out of the way. No big deal. So keep me a little zip tie in there for tree stand hunting. Next thing I'm going to do is get my string onto my bow here. This is whatever the string that came with the bow. Typically on your trad bow, you're going to have 2 loops on your strings, one at each end. You're going to have one loop that's bigger, one loop that's smaller. The bigger one goes on top, and then the smaller one is going to go on the bottom. And with a long bow, this is not the preferred method of stringing your bow, but I've been looking all over for my stringer. Can't find it, so I'm just going to string it using kind of my with my boot here. You just got to be careful and make sure everything's lined up and good. So, okay, a few things once you get the bow string. You got this a couple measurements. The first measurement is your tiller, which is from the bottom of your grip here, right here in your grip, to your string itself. You can use a tape measure. You can use whatever you want. You don't need a special tool. I have a special tool just to measure this, and we are right at 8 inches for brace height. I don't know exactly what this bow is going to run with brace, but brace height is probably one of the most important aspects of tuning. All I'm going to do here is just kind of get online on Tolkie's website and see what they recommend for brace height for my bow. So people are saying 7 1/4, 7 5/8. So I may be a touch long. For me, I would rather be a touch long than a touch short. And really, I'm probably giving it too much here. We're probably actually 7 and just over 3/4. So we're pretty close here. The next aspect that we're going to have to deal with is what's called our knocking points. This string already has some knocking points tied in with what's called a nail knot, and that's how I would recommend using a nail knot if you're going to put in some knocking points. This bow used to belong to Logan the Bowman, if you guys know who that is. So I trust Logan that this is probably really, really close. It actually changed hands from Logan to someone else and then to me, but I don't know if Logan tied these in, but these are perfect nail knots, or whatever these particular knots, whatever you want to call them. Now we have everything set up on the bow. We got the brace height. I'm gonna run it a little long starting off. These are just like wool String silencers, I recommend putting a couple of those on your string itself. It does help with quietness quite a bit. Something else I'm going to put on this bow is a tip protector. So the bottom of these long bows, they get beat up all the time because you're walking, you put them down in your boot like this, you're hitting brush with it. So I like to put a string protector or a protector on the bow itself before I get to tuning it. So let's go ahead and throw that thing on there as well. A lot of times you want to put them in some hot water to get them a little more flexible, but you just kind of work them over the tip of your bow. Take my string. You can be very careful with this. Just start a little bit of a cutout here. So it's just a mark for me. So I actually like to cut a little V out so it's not interfering with my string. So I get that tip protector all the way on my bow. Take it back off. And I have my cutouts for my string. To be honest with you guys, I don't know if this is exactly how you're supposed to do this. This is how I've always done it. And then I just cut a little V out so my string has a little bit more area to travel inside my tip protector. So then we just put it back on. Slides right on there. You'll lose this. This thing will fall off sure as the sun will rise. But it's nice to have it on there for the time being. You could glue it on, I guess, but I don't really want to do that. So then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a lighter, which I got somewhere, and I just like to give her a little heat. Just not melt it, but it's kind of like a, like a shrink tube. Warm it up a little bit. You don't want to put too much heat. Don't use like a heat gun or anything. You don't want to heat your bow up. I'm just barely touching it with this lighter here. Okay. Perfect. Now my string isn't being interfered with my tip protector, and I got a tip protector on there. Next is a quiver. I'm going to be running, this is a Big Jim quiver. I'll try to link all the stuff I use in the description here. This quiver is actually made for reflex deflex bows, and it has a type of a kickback on it here. I think they call it a kickback. Essentially what it does is it allows you to have your arrows go backwards a little bit, and the reason that's nice is because it makes the arrows more in line with your bow, whereas if you just have a traditional straight quiver, your arrows here, like this one here, would set here, just like this, then your arrows are off your limb a little bit, which is fine for a lot of bows, but now you got so much bigger of a profile. Do you see how much bigger the profile is here with your arrows sticking out? It was Big Jim design, and then I think there's other companies that have it. With this Big Jim quiver, kind of eliminates that problem, and you're able to get those arrows, as you could see, kind of kick back off of the bow itself, or into the bow itself, so you don't have as big of a profile. And I'll show you that when I get arrows ready for it. So I go ahead and put my quiver on. Start with the top here. I don't know exactly where these are all going to land yet, and I got me a green one just because it's different. But we're going to do our best. So I kind of have this quiver how I want it here. I'll just show you what I was talking about here. With my other quiver, you can kind of tell that you could tell how much bigger the profile was. Whereas now with this Big Jim quiver, the arrows are all kind of inside the bow itself, so you don't have to worry about, getting them caught on as many things and whatnot. So that right there is, I think, a really good setup. So you may think that you're done now and you can start tuning, but I like to have my bow tuned exactly how I'm going to be hunting with it, and that's with 4 arrows in the quiver. I have a 5-arrow quiver here, but whenever you're hunting, when you're actually going to shoot at a deer, you're only going to have 4 because you're going to have 1 on your wrist. It's probably an insignificant problem or an insignificant minute difference, but that little weight can cause you to torque the bow a certain way, or cause the bow to fall a little bit more on you, and you want it to be as accurate as possible. So I just throw in 4 arrows that I already have made up here, and they actually already have broadheads on them. But so we're going to go ahead and put 4 arrows in this here Big Jim quiver. And also I almost always start and I pull my first arrow that I'm going to shoot with is going to be from the back. And the reason is, whenever you're shooting, so say you just get in your tree stand and you're going to get your bow ready, always grab your farthest arrow. And because sometimes with a long bow, they're so quiet, a lot of times you get second shots. You miss a lot too, so you need a second shot. But you pull back and you shoot, and then your next arrow is going to be the one closest to you. That way you're not having to reach around and then get another arrow out of your quiver and then actually knock it. You can be really efficient by keeping the arrow that you're going to shoot second as close to you as possible. Again, not a huge deal, but it's those little minute half-second time savings that could make a big difference. Okay, let's get some arrows in this thing. Now the weight of these arrows, I think these are around 600 grains. They're going to be pretty close to what I'm going to be hunting with. Not exactly, but they'll be close. Maybe exactly, who knows. Now, we are extremely close. Something else you got to watch out for is with the quivers. A lot of times your arrows can fall into your limb a little bit, so you got to adjust your quiver to fix that problem. Not a huge deal. You just kind of twist your quiver, and now we're back in line there. All right, let's shoot this puppy. Get her tuned up now. I like to paper tune. One of my favorite ways of tuning my bow. There's all kinds of ways of getting a trad bow to shoot well. I find that for me, if I can get a decent hole through paper on my long bows, it usually is tuned pretty well. This is just a little homemade paper tuner made out of PVC pipe. I want to talk to you about tuning a trad bow. You can kind of drive yourself crazy trying to get a trad bow tuned perfectly, and there's obviously a perfect tune for this particular bow itself, but I am not a perfect shooter, and I don't think you are either. Very few people in the world can shoot one of these things enough to get everything tuned in as perfectly possible, like a compound bow. So you're going to make a bad shot. It's going to look bad on the paper tune every now and again. So I like to shoot a lot of arrows through paper just to give myself a good average, and then I take that average and if I shoot 3 arrows and 2 of them look good through paper and one of them's knock left, it's probably tuned as good as I can shoot it tuned. All right, so now let's talk about a couple other things. Knock height. Knock height is super important when you're getting started. This is when this tool here comes in handy. This is just a bow square. I'm going to kind of see where we're at with knock height with these particular knocking points, and we look like we're about a 1/2 inch. Actually, we're more like 5/8 high. Start at a 1/2 inch and work your way up or down depending on your paper tune. I would start with having my knock 1/2 inch high off my rest. So let's start with just what it's set at now, because there's no reason to change. I think with this bow at 50 pounds at my draw, I'm going to have 300 grains up front, hopefully, because I have a whole bunch of 200 grain broadheads. I think I'm going to try a 400 spine arrow. So you go into your bucket full of arrows and pick you out a 400 spine arrow. Let's see here. There's some 500. Here's a 400. And then grab a 200 grain field point. Let's shoot this 400 spine arrow with 300 grains up front. There's a 200 grain field tip, and I got a 100 grain insert in there. And let's just see what it shoots like. This arrow's already cut down. Something else you gotta, this is a really good knock fit. But if your knock fit, which is essentially how good your your nock clips into your string, if it's too tight, is trash. You do not want to try to tune a bow with a tight nock fit. You want it just to be loose enough so it doesn't come out, but then you want to be able to twist your arrow and not be able to move your string. And if you're moving your string, it's too tight. All right, so let's go ahead and throw the hat on backwards here and go ahead and just shoot this bow through paper for the first time. This 400 spine arrow is already cut down. If I was going to tune this thing with brand new arrows, I would go ahead and shoot a full length arrow and cut it down as I needed. So let's say I shot this 400 spine full length arrow and it tore to the left. Whenever you're right-handed and you have a tear to the left, that means your spine is too weak. So then you go to your arrow saw, you take out your nock, cut it down a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch, then shoot it again to see if it's less weak. It's going to be less weak, but see if it's weak enough for your bow. Every time you cut that arrow down, it's making it shorter, which makes it stiffer. Okay, so let's shoot this 400 spine through this 50-pound bow. And you just want to make sure you make a good solid shot. Okay, so kind of what I was afraid of. We got a pretty severe tear to the right, which means that we are a little bit too stiff on our arrow. Not a bad thing because I have some 500 spine arrows as well. Let's shoot this thing one more time. Come here, Rosie. Just to confirm, make sure it wasn't me. Yeah, so we're essentially tearing straight right. Okay, with a tear right that severe, obviously I can't make my arrows longer. I don't really want to add too much more weight to that arrow because I think that arrow, let's see what it's at right now. 604 grains is what that arrow is at. You know what? Let's go up a little bit here and let's see what happens here. I wouldn't mind shooting a 650 grain arrow through this puppy. So another thing you can do to tune your bow or to tune your arrow is add weight to the end. So that is going to change the dynamic spine of your shaft by adding weight. So I got this length of an arrow. I'm going to go ahead and add, this is a 200 grain field tip. I'm going to go up to 250 if I have one. I think I got one. That's going to put more weight up front. It's going to make this shaft weaker because there's going to be more torque coming from the front of the arrow. I don't know if that's the proper term, but it's going to be more wobbly. So I got to thinking more about my problem there, and you know that's tearing to the right a few inches. I don't know if adding weight, that much weight's going to change it too much. So I ended up grabbing a 500 spine arrow. We're just going to shoot it to see if it's closer to a bullet hole than what that was. So same thing. I like that nock fit. Make a good solid shot. Get your okay. That's much better. Man, that thing's quiet. That's pretty good. Now I'm just making groups and just making sure I'm consistent, making sure everything's, you know, actually when I shoot, you know. Yeah, I mean, we gotta, I mean, we're really close now. This 500 spine is definitely what I need. So this is what my tears are looking like. So this was with my 400 spine arrow. You can see the tear right was pretty significant. It's, you know, maybe 2.5 inches to the right. So I bumped up to a 500 spine arrow, and then I started to grouping here. And you can see some of these are really good. Like this is essentially a bullet hole, a trad bow bullet hole. That's a really good bullet hole for me. That's really good. Wasn't a big difference between the 200 and the 225. I'll probably just stick with 200 because I got a bunch of 200 grain broadheads. that's pretty close. I mean, I think if anything, you know, it's tearing to the right a little bit. I mean, just minutely to the right. I could probably take a shaft and maybe make it an inch longer and shoot that arrow and see how it flies, but that's pretty close. I mean, you're talking about, you know, out of this group here, I had quite a few really good bullet holes, and this is with bare shaft too. This isn't with fletching. So now let's throw one through here with fletching just to see what it looks like. Reaching your hat on around backwards. You can see here, that was my fletched arrow. Pretty small tear. I mean, you can see the 3 fletchings there. And for right now, that's as good as I'm going to tune this bow until I get to shooting more this summer, and maybe I'll fine tune it by walk back tuning or shooting some arrows that are not fletched and kind of compare those to my fletched arrows and see where they're hitting, and then just do little minute tweaks from there. But right now, this is going to get me going. This will get you going if you want to get a trad bow and find the right arrow, at least close enough to where your arrows are flying good enough to become accurate. I hope you guys learned something from this. If you've never tried traditional archery, try it. Also, try subscribing. There's a button right here to subscribe, and if you want to watch another video, right there, YouTube lets you know which one is good for you.